other kids. I believe it's about will. But there is a bit about skill as well. And I'm involved, I've been running a research project for learners with Down syndrome, and I've been looking at the mathematics development. And yes, there are things that can help kids with Down syndrome to learn mathematics. And there are things like explicitly teaching strategies, using small steps, emphasising the visual, aiming for overlearning. All of this is just good maths teaching. It's exactly what we've heard tonight. That things that help kids with Down syndrome help lots of learners. And it's really reassuring. Now, teachers need to know that. And when I did my teacher preparation courses, I didn't know that. Nobody taught me that. Nobody told me. And we see lots of parents who come to the Down Syndrome Association workshops. We had one in ACT recently. Lots of teachers come that really, really, really want to know. And they're so relieved when they find out, oh, right, there is no special trick. That's fabulous. I want to talk quickly about some of the findings that we have from our maths study. One of the things that we have found, and those of you who are parents of kids with Down syndrome, this will not be a surprise at all, our little blossoms go in for won't versus can't. So they just choose not to do things, even when you're pretty jolly sure you can. Now these two kids there, they were experts in this game, and the bloke over there on the right, Travis, his mum has given me permission, and so has Mary, to have his photo here and to talk about his story, because they're very keen for people to understand what's going on with this sort of behaviour. That boy pretended that he couldn't do anything at all, and I thought, oh, he must be able to count. It's too old. What we found out from his mum at the end of the first interview, we gave the DVD, and he watched himself on that DVD, and he would watch himself do the tasks and then go, come on, you can do it, yes! Oh. And it's a really lovely thing, because clearly what he wants to do is succeed. He wants to do well. And if he replies, there's a good chance that he's going to get wrong. That's what experience has taught him. And so the best way is not to do that. Now that sort of behaviour gets labelled as stubborn or some other, all sorts of things, but understanding where that comes from can really help. It's also, I think, a good reason why our kids don't do well in IQ tests, because there's a whole lot of protocols that you have to go through. Bob, the psychologist, would be able to tell us more about this, but you have to absolutely stick to what's going on. Now, when I'm interviewing these kids, I can play with them, I can muck around, and I can say to Mary, my game first, then your game, and we can play, and we can go to a point where we can work out what they can do. Now, I want to tell you a story about one of our star performers in our maths study. His mum said to me, oh, you'll be interested in this. The psychologist report has just come in. Now, he was finishing primary school, getting ready for high school. Now, I looked at the psych report, and the psychologist had not done the maths part of the testing. Just did not. Now, this didn't stop the woman writing in the report that he would not be able to learn mathematics. And I said to her, well, I think we've actually just got really good evidence that he can. He's learned an awful lot. Now, I thought that was malpractice myself, but she was actually happy because it meant that he got more resources. And I think there are implications in that if people have to play games to get the resources, this is perpetuating a lot of myths about kids with Down syndrome and what they can and can't do. Okay, so some early findings, while we're talking about skill, there does seem that there is something interesting happening with kids with Down syndrome, but it looks like it's a syndrome, as in that there are characteristics that we see in lots of other children, but it might be a cluster that's appearing for kids with Down syndrome. Early days in our analysis. Now, I'm interested in mathematics I'm really interested in kids with Down syndrome, but lots of other learners as well. I'm a secondary maths teacher by background, as I've said, and I reckon in secondary it's a bigger problem than we can imagine. Inclusion in secondary mathematics is not limited to a problem of people with disabilities. We have the most exclusive practices as a profession of any teaching I know. Most maths teachers would believe the way to help learners with diverse needs is to stream them. So you go from having classes, top class, the top class, right down, and it's pervasive, and I think it's seriously wrong. There's so much evidence that says it is harmful, and yet it persists. Now, I'm waiting for the maths to get on the front page of the Australian about the national curriculum, as English and history and science have done. Maths hasn't yet, because my colleagues in the profession haven't twigged that streaming is out from next year. Every kid has to do the same curriculum to year 10. Fantastic. Good time coming. Anyway, but the challenge is there. It's not easy to do, but it's not that hard either. This is where the skill comes in. And just a quick one. Do you remember what the Pythagoras' theorem is? Yes, don't we all have used it lately? No, but you all learned it, didn't you? Oh, look, it's really important. You seen this cartoon? Judy Horacek's cartoon? The square on the hippopotamus? Now look here, I'm Pythagoras, you can't talk about me like that. And you wouldn't get that joke. See, Pythagoras' theorem is really important. Well, there was a bloke with Down syndrome, young kid in year 9, and I worked with his teachers to work out what to do. What would he do? And he was doing dot to dots in the back of his classroom. He wasn't very happy about that. He was 15. And so these very, very clever teachers decided that they would get him to do Pythagoras' theorem. And so they taught him to recognise a right angle, which you have to do. Recognise a triangle, which you have to do. Know what the hypotenuse is. And the lovely thing was that he had kids beside him who were able to help him because they were doing the same thing. That had $0, no money in the till, because the special ed teachers weren't in his classroom during those 3 lessons, 2 lessons in the unit. 3 lessons is in his standard classroom, so it cost nothing. Cost nothing. Cheap. Cheap as chips. And he was a happy boy. So finally, just perhaps some suggestions for parents and teachers. I believe it's the will. There's a bit of skill. Yeah, you need a bit of money in the till. But for the will, some suggestions of how you might make inclusion work, you'll come up with all your own, so I won't be you for all of this. But I think it's about relationships and building partnerships, and I'm just really lucky where I am at the moment. It's just wonderful. I also think it's really important for parents not to be too intense. I was initially, she had to be fixed up. She had to learn all this stuff before she got to year 1. There's plenty of time. We're lifelong learners, and we've got plenty of time. I think it's important to avoid dependence on a teacher aide. Don't hang out for more money in the till. It's not really about that. Teachers can do a great job, and if they've got extra support, it's best not to be just with your child, in my view. And remember to praise the job well done. It is hard work being a teacher, and to get that little bit of encouragement to acknowledge that you're doing a great job, and if they can tell you you're doing a great job as a parent, gosh, isn't that wonderful? It's a really nice thing. But I think just for me, I am a win. If it does go bad, get your kid out of there. That's my last bit of advice. And I'd like to thank the research participants with Down syndrome who taught me a lot, parents and teachers, and Sue. Thank you very much. Thank you.